As a resident of Tallinn, you get to ride this tram, this train, this bus for free. Since 2013, Estonia's capital has made transit fare-free for its residents by absorbing the costs through taxes. And the good news? With the exception of a few rural districts, the approach is now countrywide. But just because transit is free doesn't mean it's good.
After 10 years, Tallinn's free transit program is now under heavy scrutiny, failing to achieve its goals of higher transit ridership and reduced car usage. And with experts and politicians calling for its cancellation,
tasuta asjad ei ole olemas.
Free transit in Estonia is now on the chopping block. So, should public transit be free?
All Tallinn residents get this green card for free, and it gives them access to trains, trams, and buses. By making transit free, Tallinn is treating transit as an essential social service. The public transport system is seen as a basic mobility right. Think about it. We pay for roads, police, firefighters, and libraries collectively through state taxes. These services benefit everyone, even if you don't use them. In essence, they're cornerstones of a society that functions smoothly. Tallinn sees public transit in the same light.
As a universal service with the potential to provide significant benefits for all of society.
While I enjoy riding transit, being on a bus isn't the purpose in itself.
Abolishing fares makes transit easier to use. It acts as a financial incentive to get people out of their cars, reducing congestion, road maintenance, and greenhouse gas emissions. But most importantly,
the purpose is to access the economy, whether it's jobs, to go to the grocery store, or to get your nails done. There's the argument that free transit stimulates economic growth because it allows more people to do more activities.
And Tallinn is no stranger to economic stagnation. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Estonia struggled to define its newly independent capitalist economy. Much of the city's poor, working-class population lived in Soviet-era suburban tower blocks, far from the city center. For these suburban residents, removing the financial burden of travel broadened their access to jobs and education, increasing their economic mobility. Free transit not only helped the economy, it was a critical part of making a more equitable city.
But who's footing the bill for these free rides? That money has to come from somewhere, whether it is to pay for drivers, to fuel the buses, or to do regular maintenance. The problem is, free often means less funding for the service that's providing. With fares gone, additional taxes now plug the revenue gap instead of enhancing the system.
Other cities with comparatively poor transit service, like Kansas City and Luxembourg, have been criticized in the past for investing in fare removals instead of service improvements.
But Tallinn doesn't have to deal with that trade-off between poor service and free fares. There's frequent service on the trunk lines, the coverage is extensive, and they're very clean and well-maintained vehicles. Transit service has been quite good in my experience, and there's a reason for that. Over the past 20 years, Estonia has developed the most sophisticated digital government program in the world. 99% of government services here are accessible completely online. The Estonian government has capitalized on this through its e-residency program that opens up these digital services to foreigners. As a result, Estonia has become a gateway into the EU market for foreign investors and companies, made easy by its highly developed digital infrastructure. This means that more people, including people that have never even stepped foot into the country, are paying taxes to the Estonian government, generating revenue to fund social services that include high-quality, fare-free public transit.
On paper, Tallinn's transit system should be attracting way more riders and taking cars off the road. It provides frequent, reliable service, all while being completely free to use.
But reality has told a different story. While public transport use numbers have increased, still more than half of the trips to work are done by car. In Tallinn's case, ridership increases were also lower than expected. It appears that with fare elimination, most trips shifted from walking and cycling, not reducing auto trips by the margin needed. This results in a net increase in carbon emissions for people who would have previously relied on active mobility. Overall, the results are that free public transport has not reached its goals to reduce car journeys. One thing we have to consider about free transit is the question of elasticity. How much more ridership can we get by making transit free? For every euro that's reduced off the transit fare, how many extra people can we induce into the system? General research has shown that riders value timely and frequent services more than free rides. And Tallinn's own studies show that people responded more positively to service improvements than fare removals. Making public transit free doesn't necessarily change the habits of those who drive. In order to reduce driving, there needs to be an incentive to get drivers out of their cars.
Pricing mechanisms like transit fares, gas taxes, and parking fees can certainly help shift the balance away from automobiles. But these don't solve the most critical flaws in Tallinn's transit network, which relies on slow, albeit frequent trams and local buses to cover long-distance suburban trips. And without widespread regional rail or metro service, Tallinn lacks the faster modes necessary for transit to compete with a private automobile. 10 years on, Estonia is now ending its nationwide free transit program. And although transit will remain free for residents in Tallinn, growing operating costs are putting its continuation at risk. The program was supposed to reduce car usage and encourage more sustainable mobility, but it failed to deliver on those promises and may have created other negative impacts.
Even so, free transit remains exceptionally popular. Polls show that 90% of Tallinn residents still support the program. As a political experiment, it has been incredibly successful.
But residents still choose to drive because it's the fastest and most convenient option. For transit to outcompete the car, it can't just be free.
It has to be a more attractive option in every way. Faster, cheaper, and more reliable.
To the black hole, sing for my soul, to make myself whole.